2050, 50% of all revenue is going to go interest on the debt. We should be paying the debt. Your response?
My response is this: we should be paying the debt, which is why the Doge dividend incentivizes every American to call out waste, fraud, and abuse, to lower the budget, to narrow the deficit, and to bring down the debt. Where was this emergency over the debt when we sent $350 million to Ukraine to be wasted? Where was this emergency, Michael, on CNN when you guys were advocating?
Does economics do some basic research before saying nonsense? Do you realistically think that we are ever going to pay down $36 trillion? Just be honest with me right now. Do you ever think that's actually going to happen? Your investments grade will be reduced? That's not the question I asked. Do you think that we're ever going to pay that down? That's it. That number is ever going to get erased. Japan, China on most of our debts, yes, I think. I don't think we will. I think the number is too big. We're not getting enough money. There's never going to be a reason to do that. A lot of the EU and Brazil can't really capitalize on that debt. It's not going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen.
$7,000 to migrants in Chicago. $7,000 a month per migrant, and now we want to spend $5,000 one time from President Trump to hardworking Americans. The migrants didn't deserve $7,000 a month. Hardworking Americans deserve a $5,000 check with President Trump's name on it. So enough with the double standard. Ukraine did not deserve $350 billion.
Okay, listen to me.
Something totally.
Listen to me. This is Madoff-like. This is a Ponzi scheme.
No, Ukraine was a Ponzi scheme. The migrant funding was a Ponzi scheme. Hardworking Americans deserve a break.
James,
their money, Michael. It was their money.
James, give me a chance to speak. Theoretically, it's my program. We don't have the money, is what I'm trying to tell you. It's a Ponzi.
So we didn't have the money for Ukraine. We didn't have the money for Ukraine.
Am I gonna
$50 billion?
I never do this. I don't want to be that guy. And do I have to silence your microphone and respond to what you've said? Because there's so much fallacy in what you just offered. I have a very simple premise here. We're $36 trillion in debt. It's a fraud. As much as I want to see us cut waste, fraud, and abuse, it is an absolute fraud to say to the American people, because of what Musk is doing, we have $5 grand to give each of you. The only way we have $5 grand is if we're borrowing it, because we're that far in debt. I'm trying to meet you halfway, which is simply to say, what a good thing that finally we're going to look at waste, fraud, and abuse, albeit it shouldn't be in this haphazard fashion. But let's at least be honest with the American people that whatever we quote-unquote save, we already owe. Now I'm going to give you 30 seconds to respond, and then I'm going to say see you later. Go ahead.
Michael, let me say this.
Bot Rix has correctly joined the channel.
At the end of the day, we've got to send the money back that is saved. Just 20% of it. The other 80% goes down to paying the national debt and narrowing the deficit. To your point, yes, there has been a fraud against the Ukraine, their taxpayer dollars were sent abroad, were not sent not spent in not on education. That ends with President Trump's leadership today. He is delivering on his promise of major government reform, Michael. The Doge dividend plan is bold and American support.
All right, I'm calling time on all of that. I appreciate you being here. I think we've each, I hope, made our respective points. Thank you.
I don't think it's going to Doge dividend. I'm going to be totally honest. I don't think that's going to happen. I think the probability of it happening is so extremely fucking low. This is here. The money was found when they have all the receipts. Now find a cash stockpile. It's money that we're spending on something stupid, and then we stop spending the money, right? I think that's generally what happens. So about that once in 10 years, once it's over there, and our political points will fucking. The thing is that, like, we're never going to pay back $36 trillion. It's never going to happen. The entire premise of this problem is fake. Like, I'm sorry. And if you guys think that it's going to happen, go ahead, clip it right now. Let's come back to it in 5, 10, 20 years. Yep, let's come back. Let's see if the number goes up or down. Somehow it's just going to keep going up and up and up and up and up and up and up. That's it. And it's never going to go down. Will you be here in 20 years if I don't get banned? Maybe, yeah. We'll see what happens, right? definitely that too. And yeah, that's it.
Don't drink our blood. It is riddled with STDs.
True. World War III.
That smell isn't ready yet. The voice explained. I'm detecting several pathogens in her body. Drinking her blood is not advised. Quinn tried to ignore the voice as the female cadet in front in the mess hall line turned and asked, "Are you talking to me, loser?" It was Scarlet Westfield, one of the most popular cadets at the academy. Quinn quickly shook his head. "No, I was just talking to myself." He tried to seem as innocent and pathetic as possible, which wasn't too difficult. But the voice in his head analyzed Scarlet. Female, 19 years old, telekinetic powers, blood charging. At the same time, Scarlet sneered at Quinn. That's not ready yet. Powerless rebel, you shouldn't even be near me. The whole mess hall turned to look at the commotion. Quinn desperately wanted to say something and put Scarlet in her place, but he couldn't afford to reveal his secret. Not yet. Luckily, the bell rang and saved him, but that also meant it was time for class. That training class. When he pulled the door open, everyone
I don't know how, bro. Like,
I can't cast that yet. It's still recharging. That smoke isn't ready yet. I can't attack that. I can't cast that yet. recharging. Cast that yet. It's too far away.
Killing spree.
Shit.
Charging.
Killing spree.
That's got to be a bot, right?
That spell isn't ready yet. That's still recharging. That spell isn't ready yet. I can't cast that yet. That spell isn't ready yet. I can't cast that yet. That's still recharging. I can't cast that yet.
Oh, look who's back.
That spell isn't ready yet. That's still recharging. I need to get closer. I'm out of range.
Rampage.
Shit, I think that guy's in my stream. Huh. Oh. Hey. Hell yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah? Okay? What the f... Bro, what is this guy doing? Okay, fatty.
Recharging. That spell isn't ready yet. It's still recharging.
The amount of times that Raptor Strike misses is ridiculous.
I can't cast that yet.
Raptor Strike dodge.
That's still recharging. I can't cast that yet. That spell isn't ready yet.
John's golden spyglass. The fuck is that? We kill Zill's mixtures. Oh, I remember this quest. Okay. Next to the Gurubashi Arena.
It's still recharging. recharging. That spell isn't ready yet.
You want to hamstring me, huh? Creamy, huh?
I can't cast that yet. It's too far away. That spell isn't ready yet. That's still recharging. I can't cast that yet. That spell isn't ready yet. That's still recharging. I can't cast that yet. That's still recharging. I'm out of range.
Isn't there a... We need to go to Booty Bay really quick. I'm out of stuff.
It's not creatine. In fact, unlike creatine where I felt like I put on this unnecessary water weight muscle, this stuff I felt like yielded me real, hard, dense muscle. But only when I took it at maximum dose. Little secret actually, I took it at twice the maximum dose. What is it? Let's get into it and some of the side effects I experienced. But you gotta focus. So what then is this mysterious white powder? Well, it's called hydroxymethylbutyrate, also known as HMB. Now, if you haven't heard of this before, you might be thinking like, oh, is that some kind of new selective androgen receptor modulator or something even crazier? And if you have heard about this before, then you might be like, bro, wait, isn't that just a junk supplement? Get that out of here. Well, hold on a second. I'm here to tell you, I really felt like I had some undeniable benefits when taking this at max dose and beyond. But before we get into my experience, I want to go over what the bro science argument is for why HMB might work so well when it comes to muscle growth. So, first of all, what is hydroxymethylbutyrate? Well, it's actually produced naturally by the body when the body breaks down leucine. leucine, you may have heard of, is, one of the Mac Daddy branched chain amino acids, the one that many claim, and many studies have shown, is responsible for muscle growth, hypertrophy, muscle strength, right? Now, leucine is thought to stimulate this muscle anabolism, if that's a word, muscle growth, muscle strength, through the mTOR pathway. Now, studies on HMB and the science behind HMB also claims that HMB might stimulate muscle growth through the mTOR pathway. Now, this is where the bro science argument comes into play. You see, the thought is maybe it's the HMB from the breakdown of leucine that is responsible for the muscle anabolic response. And if that is the case, why even take leucine? Why not just jump to HMB? Now, there are arguments going the other way, maybe leucine breaks down into other stuff, maybe it has other signaling properties, blah, 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 but let's just assume that is the case, right? When leucine is broken down into HMB, based on the research I found, it seems to only be at about 5%.
Hey, I can teach you fishing
So what
skills.
that means is if you take a common dose of like 3 grams of leucine, maybe in your favorite BCAA product, right? Well, 3 grams would yield only about 0.15 grams of HMB based on that 5%. So 3 grams of leucine, 0.15 grams of HMB. If I took 3 grams of HMB, well, that's 3 grams of HMB. That's 20 times more than I would get from taking 3 grams of leucine. So is that 20 times more anabolic? That's the argument. So I came across a bunch of these HMB supplements online, but a lot of them were mixed with other supplements and or flavors, blah, blah, blah. I just wanted to get the plain stuff. Found this one by NutriCost. Other ingredients, none. I get this product, I'm excited to take it. I pop the cap off, I remove the safety seal, and then I'm hit with this just like plume of this like pungent BO smell. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Oh. Ooh. And at first I was extremely worried because it kind of like plumed away, and I went to go smell it more, and it smelled, it still smelled, but not as intense. And I thought, I had this image in my mind of this guy on the assembly line putting the safety seals on these things, and I'm thinking like, dude, did this guy like not take a shower in like 3 weeks? And then when mine like went by him, like did it drip? Literally, that's what flashed through my mind. What does it smell like to you? Do you smell anything in there?
No.
I swear it's not as potent as it was earlier, which kind of has me concerned because it's like, is it the powder that smelled like it, or is it a person who is manufacturing that? Because that would be sick. But I did a quick internet search, does HMB smell like body odor? And I came across a bunch of anecdotes, people saying like it just smells awful. And I thought, oh, okay, so this is normal. All right, great. So anyways, to start out, I thought I would just go Weenie Hut Juniors and just do one scoop, and see how my body reacted to it. So on the first day, I did 1 scoop pre-workout on an empty stomach. I was intermittent fasting this day. In fact, I was also in a lean out phase. But on day 1, just 1 gram, and then going into a workout. And going into that workout, I do have to say, it felt good, but nothing extraordinary, nothing I could be like, oh wow, I feel absolutely amazing. It just felt like a decent workout. Kind of just normal, to be honest with you. But more importantly, I felt like I didn't have any negative effects from this 1 gram supplementation of HMB before my workout. Now, when it comes to side effects, based on what I found on the internet, there really didn't seem to be any big side effects. At most, when taking at higher dosage, it seemed, the typical gastrointestinal discomfort, gas, bloating, etc. But other than that, I didn't really come across anything serious, at least when taken within the recommended dose range, 1 to 3 grams being maximum. So I thought, you know what, 1 gram, I didn't really notice anything throughout this first workout. Let me bump it up to the maximum dosage recommendation of 3 grams per day. I decided to take 2 doses in the morning pre-workout and then 1 dose intra-workout moving forward. And then when it was on a rest day, I would just take 3 doses kind of evenly spaced out throughout the day. And I continued this day after day after day. Now towards the end of the first week, when taking this 3 gram dose now for about 4 or 5 days, all of a sudden, going into my workout, working out upper body, being in a calorie deficit for a while now, all of a sudden I noticed I had this like, what felt like an increase in strength. Not necessarily like a caffeine strength where it felt like jittery or anything like that, but like a a muscle confidence strength. You know, ever know like when you're like maybe in a lean out phase, kind of dieting down, and it just feels like you're gonna like you're just not confident with that, like a heavy weight that you used to lift maybe when you were bulking. Well, I felt like I just had it like I was bulking almost, and it felt like a smooth motion when I was pressing these weights. A muscle confidence strength. And I remember this was very surprising on this day because I was thinking like, dude, I'm lighter than I have been all year, and I should be feeling kind of weak right now. At least that's how I was feeling like last week. And I'm like lighter than last week, but like I feel muscle confident, like I feel strong, you know what I'm saying? And it was like that throughout most of the first working sets per each exercise, because it seemed like when I got more into the exercise, I had like an energy drop. I still felt this muscle strength confidence, but my energy was dropping, and I think that had to do with the calorie deficit that I was in at the time. But I'm telling you, this muscle strength increase that I felt, this like muscle confidence strength that I felt, it just felt so like internal and deep, where I just am like, dude, something has to be going on with, like, just something has to be going on here. And I think it's due to the new supplement I added in, HMB, as I sip on it throughout in my workout. So I'm like, dude, I gotta keep this going as I'm keeping the cut going. If this is increasing my strength, because that's just gonna help me keep muscle on, if not build muscle as I get leaner, and I'm gonna look even crazier than I even thought I was gonna look. So I'm like, dude, heck yeah. Oh man, I just can't get over that. And funny story, I remember being so like determined to just keep taking this because I felt like it was working for me so well, that when I was going on a trip to Austin, Texas for just like 2 days, I'm like, dude, I don't want to miss supplementing with this, but I don't want to take this whole entire canister with me just in case TSA is like, you got to throw that away. So I'm like, I found an old supplement that was expired that I had in the cupboard, and I took the old supplement and I emptied it out. And I remember pouring this on a plate to then create my own capsules of 500 milligrams. So 2 capsules would then be a serving of this. So I would take 6 a day to maintain that 3 gram per day dosage. And I took all those, I made enough, and I put them in a bag, and then took those with me to Austin. Anyway, sorry for the dumb story. All I'm trying to say is I didn't want to jeopardize not taking this for a day, just in case this got like taken away from me on the plane, because it's like, you know, too big of a container or whatever. So I made myself these little serving capsules that I could take with me while I was in Austin to maintain this. That's how much I just was like hype about this at the time. Anyways, it was only a quick trip, and when I returned from Austin, I continued with my 3 gram dosage per day. Now, as the next couple of weeks progressed, my lean out phase was progressing, and with all the stuff I was doing to get lean, I started to notice my strength began to decrease, even with this 3 gram dose of HMB per day. So because this seemed to work initially, I figured, let's double the dose. So I ended up taking 6 grams per day, and I basically did this just keeping it simple. I took a 2 gram dose, 2 scoops in the morning, first thing upon awakening, 2 scoops pre-workout, and then 2 scoops in my intro workout, whether that was just plain water or mixed with some like beetroot powder or something like that. Let's go! Oh man, it stinks. And then upon doing this, on the first day of doing this, I noticed what felt like an increase in strength, like that muscle confident strength during my workout. Like I was like, dude, heck yes. But this time it seemed like it was only for that one workout. It didn't really seem like it lasted with me the rest of the week. Also, with this now 6 gram dose a day, I started to smell. At first, it felt like it was just in my nose, right? Like, I'm like, am I just smelling that? Is it just like in my nose? But as I investigated further, I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, it wasn't just regular body odor. It was just like, it was like body odor on HMB. Yeah, it's like body odor, but just like ×5 pungency. Like when you smell regular body odor, I feel like it hits me like here, right? But this smell, I feel like was hitting me like here. Does that make sense? Like it also felt like it was emanating from like when I would sweat too. Like it felt like it was coming out of like my sweat glands, which man, it's kind of awful to be honest with you. So yeah, wearing like a sweatshirt in the gym to like hopefully seal it up, but then, you know, afterwards get to the car and all that hot air, you know, when you sit down, it like pressed out and it's like, but yeah, anyways, the 6 gram dose, I started to notice this like smell emanating from my body, and it was not good. And because it smelled just like that plume smelled like when I opened this container for the first time, like to me, it was like no doubt it had to be from supplementing with a 6-gram dose of this per day. So at that point, I'm at a crossroads. After that first day of that 6-gram dose, the rest of the week, it felt like my strength tapered back down. Like it helped at first, but then it didn't. I was like, dude, this ain't worth it, man. I just need a break, all right? I need a break. So yeah, the smell was that bad. At this point, I decided to actually take a complete break from HMB and stop supplementing with it altogether for at least a week-long period. And it ended up being like about 2 weeks, actually. Now, over the next 10 days, completely off of HMB, it was absolutely noticeable to me. I was significantly weaker in key compound lifts than I was when taking this. So, after the 10 days taking a break from this supplement, I decided, let's start it up again. This time, going back into the 3-gram dose. 2 grams in the morning, you know, 1 first thing when I wake up, 1 pre-workout, and then 1 gram intra-workout. And literally the first day I took this like that again after the 10 days off, dude, that muscle confidence felt like it came back. After about several days or so on this dose, a little bit more recently, I started to notice as I'm getting leaner, when I'm flexing in the mirror, what appears like almost like new muscle growth, more so than that I believe I should have just by this lean out phase, right? Like it almost looks like a creatine pump, but like a little bit harder per se. And one could argue that's just muscle growth from the bulk and now the lean out phase, but to me it seems like it kind of came out of nowhere. Now it's nothing like absolutely extraordinary, but it does seem like there's some anabolic action going on, you know, all of a sudden while on a lean out phase. And I'm thinking like my strength went up, and I look like I'm noticing this like new, what looks like new muscle growth. Is it in my head? Is it this? Is this whole entire thing placebo? I definitely don't think so. Some bonus information, I also came across some interesting studies looking at HMB and muscle strength in older individuals. I think it's called sarcopenia, like the loss of muscle tissue. I think when they supplemented with vitamin D and HMB, they noticed an increase in muscle strength in older individuals. Also, there was the supplementation of creatine and HMB together, yielding positive muscle growth results, muscle strength results as well, I believe. You can check into those studies. Very cool, very interesting. Hey, maybe I should pop on the creatine again with this. I think some brands do mix creatine and HMB together because of a potential synergistic effect. Something I might need to look in a little more. So yeah, that is actually where I'm at now. Actually, no, it's not. Where I'm at right now making this video is I just literally started stopping all supplements. I'm gonna stop all supplements. What is wrong with you? Dude, you're all over the place. No, I just feel like all these supplements I've been taking all year long have been added up, and I want at least 2 weeks where I don't take any supplements. So I'm actually gonna stop taking all supplements for 2 weeks throughout the end of December, and then in January 1st, I'm gonna hop back on my favorite supplements, and this one is going to be added to that stack because in my opinion, I felt like this has yielded me some significant results. Oh, by the way, this isn't even HMB, this is actually baking soda. I didn't want to put, I didn't want to put this out on it. Yeah, it looks just like that though. Like it literally looks just like that. Like you can see. Like, yeah. Oh man. You have to see like, oh. Yo, what's up guys? So as I'm editing this video, I think there's something very important that I want to point out that you may have already figured out. And that's the fact that throughout this HMB experimentation, I have been in a lean out phase. So I've been leaning out. And that's where I've experienced it potentially helping me with these like spontaneous strength gains, right? But if I was bulking, would it have an additional effect? That I don't know. And in fact, a lot of the studies are typically done on people who are experiencing like muscle loss, or I've come across people claiming that it only really helps when they're in a deficit per se. So yeah, for me, throughout most of this, I was in a deficit, except for like Thanksgiving. And I know I made a video where I said like the cut is over, but I gotta be honest, like after that, I was kind of like maybe eating maintenance for a few days. Then I'm like, you know what? I'm feeling pretty hype again, and I just kind of want to continue this lean out phase to like feel better before I do anything drastic. So come January 1st, I don't know if I'm gonna like do a light bulk or like main gain, or to be honest, I don't even know exactly what I want to do. So give me a suggestion. What do you think I should do come January 1st? And whether or not HMB will help if I'm bulking, I don't know. Maybe on days where I intermittent fast, because I'll probably still want to intermittent fast here and there. Man, sorry I'm all over the place. I believe this supplement really helped me out when I was in a lean out phase for spontaneously like giving me back this like confident strength. Other than that, when I took it way too high, like I shared in the video, weird emanating smell. Yeah, other than that, no other side effects for me per se. Remember, always do your own research when you want to decide to take a new supplement. Always assume any risk. Anyways, hope you guys all enjoyed this video. Hope it was entertaining and informative. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned. More videos coming out. Peace. I will see you all in the next video. Happy New Year. Merry Christmas.
I'm at one of the best bodybuilding gyms in the world, where mass monsters come from all across the globe to train. And in this video, I'm gonna see if they'd be willing to take science-based advice from me, a science-based lifter who's much smaller than them. Let's find out. A lot of people think like, oh, if you want the best advice, you ask the biggest guy in the gym. So I'm trying to see if people who are bigger than me would be open to hearing science-based lifting advice.
Oh, I would for sure. If you're smart, you're gonna ask the big guy, you're gonna ask the science guy, who's also in shape, obviously. And then you just try shit out and see what works for yourself.
Hey bro, you're obviously way bigger than me, but I'm still wondering, would you be open to taking science-based lifting advice from me?
Absolutely, man. I'm always willing to learn. You might not agree with someone's entire training approach. There's always little things that you can take that you can apply to your own training.
Let's see your lateral raise technique, man.
All right.
Okay, good. So you say you're open to hearing advice?
Of course.
Okay, here's one thing. I would recommend raising this up.
Okay.
And the reason for that, if you put it at hand height and hold it here, you'll feel the most tension while your delt is most stretched. Because you're gonna get the most tension when the cable and your arm form a 90-degree angle.
Makes sense.
So if you go from the bottom, stand up, where does that 90-degree angle happen? About there.
Right.
So you're getting peak tension when the delt is most shortened.
Yeah.
Whereas if we raise this up, now you have peak tension right here. So you are getting the delt nice and stretched. You could probably step out even a little more and get a little more stretch here. I'm all on the stretch wave these days. I'm not saying it's the most important thing, but I think it matters.
That tension when the muscle's in the stretch position, that's what's going to tear up the muscle fibers. Like I emphasize that on all my lifts. I mean, I'm pretty big. It's working for me.
It's working for you. Exactly. That's it, bro.
But this is good. I'm going to try this today. My shoulder workout, man. This is nice.
All right, we got a certified big guy over here. Let's go see if he's willing to listen to me. Excuse me, bro. I was wondering if, even though you're way bigger than me, would you be willing to take some science-based lifting advice from me?
Yeah, sure, of course.
Would you be willing to show me how you bench?
Sure.
I want you to do whatever you would do.
All right.
Just pretend the cameras are not here. Pretend I'm not here.
Let's take the safeties off. I don't know why.
Fair enough. Okay, so first of all,
5.
I wouldn't, don't do this, but, wait, so you want 5 plates? So this is 495 pounds.
Let's go, dude. Yep.
This is where I'll probably give you the science-based critique, trying to go for the junior world record on the bench press this year. And this is 550 pounds, more than I've ever actually deadlifted in my life, which is insane. All right, Dima, let's get it, buddy. Here we go. Drive, come on. Nice work, bro. So you have a very unique benching style, which is just like brute force. So it reminds me of the deadlifters who just come in like grip and rip, but then they deadlift like 800 pounds. Who am I to tell you to pull the stock out of the bar? But in your case, I don't think I noticed a lot of leg drive. If you could push down and push the floor away from you, press the bar up and back, if that could help you generate more power, or maybe that would just make you overthink it and actually bench press less.
When I make any small adjustments where I kind of have to think about doing it, it always takes my mind off the actual lift.
It makes sense. And listen, people kind of have this caricature of what science-based lifting is. What it is to me is more along the lines of what's going to work the best. That doesn't mean it has to be based off a study. You can be doing your own experiment. And if what you're doing is working, then what am I going to say? You're one of the best bench pressers in the whole world. So it's like, come on. So yeah, that was incredible, bro. You put on a great show. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
All right, bro. This is probably my favorite back exercise. So can you show me how you do it?
Yes.
How would you load the plates here?
I put the 25 here just to have a bit more of weight and resistance at the bottom. But I love to really get a good stretch.
That is exactly what I would do as well. That's really good. Good squeeze. Wow, that's the tempo you lift with?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very controlled. I have to get incredibly nitpicky because this is basically perfect. She's squeezing her mid traps together. She's pulling them apart on the negative, and then look at the control on the negative. You can almost feel the fibers pulling apart on the negative. Whereas a lot of people who do this exercise will just let the weight free fall, and they only think about getting the weight up rather than controlling it on the way down. But that's when most of the growth happens. A double plus, you nailed it. Yeah, that's perfect, good job. No wonder you're so freaking jacked. What a lot of people do is they get so obsessed with adding weight that they let their form slip. And they're like, oh, I'm adding so much more weight, I'm getting stronger. But it's like, no, your form is just getting worse. But I think you can become so obsessive with the form that you just like, you can't get that like in the movement anymore. As long as you can still get that then I think it's totally fine to be as perfectionistic about your form as you want to be. This guy is massive. Even though you're obviously a lot bigger than me, would you be open to taking a few science-based tips from me or no?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So what's a weak point that you're trying to bring up on your physique right now?
I would say my back, more or less.
Is it more mid-back or more width? So more like thickness versus width?
Like, yeah, more width.
Let's go do some pull-ups. You want to show me your technique?
All right, let's do it.
All right. Actually, I have another question for you. What's your weight right now, bro?
345.
Bro has like almost 200 pounds on me.
I need a lot of assistance.
Yeah? Yeah, well, if you're 345 pounds, that's a nice range of motion, man. Good control. So when I talk about technique from a science-based perspective, there's two things that I look for. One is range of motion, and the other thing is control on the negative.
Okay.
You did both of those things great.
Okay.
A lot of people on pull-ups cut the range of motion short either at the bottom or at the top, with the bottom being extremely important because that's where the lats are going to be most stretched.
Yes.
The other thing a lot of people do is they tend to use a lot of momentum on pull-ups. So they kind of use a lot of hip drive to get themselves moving, which I think is actually an advantage of using assistance because it forces you to be a little bit more locked in.
Absolutely, yeah.
Guys who are trying to get really, really jacked like you are actually almost too proud to use assistance. They almost see it as like, oh, I don't need assistance, bro. But I'm a lot lighter than you. I can do quite a few bodyweight pull-ups, but I find I can connect with my lats better
Absolutely,
if I use assistance. So I thought that was a really great thing as well. The only thing I did notice, and I don't even think it's a bad thing, is that when you do your pull-ups, you almost arc a lot. You almost keep your head away from the bar.
Yes.
You notice that?
Yeah,
is that on
trying to bring my chest to the bar.
You're essentially squeezing your shoulder blades together.
Yes.
When you do that, if you stay completely upright, you'll isolate the lats a little more through, if you just turn side on, what's called shoulder adduction. So essentially bringing it down in this plane.
Okay.
Whereas the more you lean back, now you're gonna get some mid-trap involvement. Pull-ups are meant to be a complete back exercise.
Yes.
So it's not a bad thing, it's just different ways of executing it, I suppose. I'd give you an A double plus on your technique, it's great, yeah.
Coming from you means a lot.
Yeah. We wanna see what's going on. I was also incredibly curious, how many calories do you eat a day?
You know what? This year is actually less than usual. I'm like 7,000 calories a day. Less than
a day, 7,000, bro.
Like 65 to 7, usually, yes. Closer to 7.
How many grams of protein?
Just under 400.
And your body weight is 340. The studies do show that you tend to max out the anabolic response around 0.7 to 1 grams of protein per pound of body weight. So you could probably get away with like 350, 340, 350 at an upper end.
That's true.
I think I need like one more. A couple more big guys, big girls, whatever. Would you be open to taking some science-based advice from me, even though you're the pro?
I don't understand.
Oh, okay.
Good English.
No, that's totally fine. Is it cool if I give you some workout tips?
Okay. Yeah?
Yeah?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. What's a muscle that you're trying to improve for your next show? What's something you're really trying to work on?
My legs.
So what's an exercise that you've been doing to try to bring up your legs?
Squat.
Squat? Okay.
Yeah.
Can you show me how you do it?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, let's do it. So I just want you to front squat however you normally would. Nice. That was perfect. Your depth is great. Your walkout is efficient. Your rack position is good. A lot of people have a tendency when they front squat to kind of like let their back curve forward, but you do a really good job of keeping your elbows up and keeping your chest tall. You get really deep. A lot of bodybuilders especially will try to load too much weight to the point that they end up only going about like halfway down, whereas you get all the way down. So I have to ask you another question. You're trying to bring up your legs, so how many times per week do you train your legs?
2 per week.
2 days per week? Okay, so that's perfect as well. How many sets would you say you do for your legs?
I think 10.
About 10 sets? Okay, and you do that twice per week?
Yeah.
So you're doing about 20 sets per week?
Yeah.
So I have nothing for you. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
That's great. All right. So I was curious, even though you're obviously much bigger than me, would you still be open to taking training tips from me?
Yes, of course. For him, he always likes to get in new information and learn from others. And if it works for him, great. If it doesn't, then at least he'll learn something new, right?
ما فيش حد متعلم كل شيء.
Yeah.
أكيد في بعض المعلومات أنا مش متعلمها.
Nobody knows everything. Of course, there's things that he doesn't know yet. So the more he knows, the better.
What's a body part that you're trying to improve this off season? Maybe a weak point or something that you're giving more attention to.
Thickness, yeah.
Okay, so like mid traps. Mid traps. Okay.
Yes.
لا أوكي أنا معاه في أي تمرين.
Do you recommend anything?
For back thickness, there's actually something that I do on the T-bar row that we can try. It's a T-bar row that turns into a Kelso shrug. So once you hit failure, leave your arms straight and do this. So you're not rowing, it's a shrug. It's a mid-trap shrug. That'll allow you to get more reps for your mid-traps after you've exhausted your ability to fully row. So it's basically an extended set beyond failure. I just want you to try that out. So for mid-trap emphasis, flare the elbows out at about a 45-degree angle. If you keep them too tucked, it'll be more lat emphasis. And then once you can't squeeze it all the way up, keep your elbows locked and just shrug here. That's it. And so keep the elbows locked and just squeeze, just squeeze. That's it. That's it. That's it. That's it. Nice. What do you think?
Yeah, good, good.
Yeah, good?
Yeah.
All right, nice. Look at his arms. Look at this. This is crazy, dude. Even though you're obviously way bigger than me, would you still be open to hearing science-based lifting advice from me?
Absolutely.
What would you say is a weak point on your physique, if any?
This isn't a good question to ask because I'm hypercritical. I think everything's a weak point.
So to me, that translates as no weak points.
One of the things I put most of my focus into is just the lats.
How many days a week do you train your lats right now?
I only train 4 times a week, so I train everything once. Biceps, I train twice.
Is there a reason for that? Like, do you think that you need 6 or 7 days for that muscle to feel recovered because you're hammering it that hard? Or do you think that after like 3 or 4 days, I'm not really sore anymore, I could come in and smash it again?
I mean, there's different ways to train, as you know, and one of the things that me and my coach have tried recently is a really high intensity program with lower volume. So we're only training 4 times a week, and with how hard I'm training, I do need about 6-7 days to rest to come back and have another good workout.
I mean, when you look at the studies on training frequency, they're mostly college-aged guys who are not even remotely at your level of muscular development. So it's like I'm totally open to the possibility that like once you get to this level, you can incur so much muscle damage in a session because of the loads you're using, because of how much sheer mass there is, that yeah, you just do need a long time for that stuff to get back to baseline.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. Bro, I was nervous you were gonna say no about that science-based thing.
Oh yeah?
No, I'm joking. These are the things you like? Okay. I want you to do it how you would do it, so don't try to science-ify it for the video.
Yeah.
Just normal. Nice. That's the tempo you'd normally use?
At this weight, yeah.
Yeah. One thing he's clearly doing is driving his elbow down. That's gonna activate his lat. And he's actually not doing what a lot of bodybuilders do on pull downs, which is squeezing their mid traps together. He's completely isolating his lat by driving his elbow down. There's almost no swaying, amazing control on the negative, and he's keeping his shoulders square. So if you look front on, he's not doing this, which a lot of people do to cheat. This is good. I think I can tell it's a non-dominant hand because you're like kind of curling with your wrist a little bit more. Also, when you extend, there's actually no need to extend back behind your midline because the lats have no leverage there. So a lot of people have a tendency when they do pull downs to go like way and pull back here, but your lats literally can't contribute to that motion. The traps can take over, but clearly he's trying to isolate his lats here, but that looks really good, Quinn.
You know, you said something and about the wrist being bent, I never catch that. And when I switched it, just something that small, I felt a much harder contraction.
Yeah, it makes sense. Because you see, like, when you're training your lats, there are multiple joints where tension can leak. It means that if there's unwanted movement here, that tension isn't being directed as efficiently to the muscle where you want it. Last question, what's your favorite pose?
Maybe a front double bicep.
Front double bicep?
Yeah.
Would you be down to do a front double bicep with me?
Oh, sure.
Yeah? All right, let's do it. Oh, I was gonna ask you, how heavy are you, bro?
My weight now is 293.
293.
Yeah.
Okay. Makes sense. Look at the arms, bro. That's insane. Just come up close on this. Bro. Yeah. That's great. You look insane. Yeah. Quentin is probably has the most amazing physique I've ever seen in person, like that I've stood next to. And it's funny that I asked him what his weak point was, and he was like, I don't know, I have so many.
And it's like, I knew he didn't have one. I'm gonna go ahead and link everybody who is in this video's Instagram, YouTube, whatever, down below. So make sure you go show them some love. Let them know that you came from this video. I really appreciate that. If you guys enjoyed it, leave me a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you all here in the next one. Why did the big guy cross the road? Why did the big guy cross the road? Get to Tren. There's Tren on the other side. You said to be funny, bro. I don't have jokes like that. I don't know.
The internet thinks I'm wrong. Really wrong. And apparently, it's a big deal. I've been on the record for at least the last year or two saying that the stretch part of a lift is more important than the contracted part of a lift. If you watch me at all, you've heard me say this.
How does an exercise make it into the top?
So I have 3 criteria. The first is high tension and high stretch.
If I pull from here, I'm getting so much more of a lat stretch. You're gonna get this big stretch here, which you'll be able to see. I'm all on the stretch wave these days.
But the thing is, not everyone agrees with me.
Science-based lifting has lost the plot because recently every science-based giant creator has been obsessed with the stretch.
You know, this new wave of training that everyone's in is the stretch.
If you think that stretch-mediated hypertrophy is going to be the silver bullet that gets you from making no gains to being the next Ronnie Coleman, not the case.
And that's because most of the studies that I've been referencing that show a benefit of the stretch have been on untrained lifters or beginners. That's not a huge deal, but it was starting to eat at me.
Whenever I see a video like that of Jeff Nippard, I listen, but I'd rather hear it go hard.
Science this, science that, science, science, science.
Length and partials.
They don't have the significant impact.
Stretch people are going to walk back all the stretch stuff in 5 years.
I was starting to worry that maybe I was overhyping the stretch. Sure, the same mechanisms that drive muscle growth in beginners should also apply to experienced lifters, but without a good study on well-trained subjects, it's hard to say for sure. So I only had one option. I needed to link up with the best exercise science team in the world and do the research we desperately need. So I flew to New York and kicked off the only study that's ever been done on range of motion in highly experienced trainees. First, as I'm sure you all know, full range of motion is when you go all the way up and all the way down. Partial range of motion is when you don't use a full range of motion. And a lengthened partial is when you use a partial range of motion while the muscle is more lengthened or stretched. Again, whenever I say shortened partials, you should be thinking big squeeze. Whenever I say lengthened partials, you should be thinking big stretch. Now, to get everyone up to speed, before starting our study in New York, there were 5 studies comparing shortened partials to lengthened partials. Lengthened partials cause significantly more muscle growth every single time. And there were also 5 studies comparing lengthened partials to a full range of motion. Lengthened partials cause significantly more muscle growth 4 out of 5 times. Together, this is strong evidence that focusing on the stretch should cause the best gains. So, why are some people so skeptical? Well, one theory the skeptics have been saying is that the only reason lengthened partials seem to work so well is that they're causing something called sarcomere addition. That's when your muscles grow bigger in length rather than growing bigger in thickness. But the thing is, sarcomere addition only seems to happen in beginners. After a few months of training, sarcomere addition is no longer possible. Therefore, their argument goes, lengthened partials really only work for new lifters. So, to put this argument to the test, we recruited participants with an average lifting experience of 4.9 years. Like, one of our subjects literally looks exactly like a young Mike Israetel. It's kind of insane. These guys and gals are not beginners. And this will show us if lengthened partials really are best left for newbies and their sarcomere addition, or if they work on more advanced subjects too. Here's how it'll work. For the next 8 weeks, each subject is going to train one side of their body with a full range of motion, and the other side with lengthened partials. So when they do curls, they'll do one arm like this with a full ROM, and they'll do their other arm like this, staying in the bottom half in the stretch. When they do pull downs, they'll hit one side with a full ROM, and then they'll hit the other side with all lengthened partials.
Each subject is going to train one half of their body with one of 2 methods. So one half of their body is going to be full range of motion, the other half is going to be long length partials only.
This is a really strong study design. The problem with the more common study design of splitting subjects into 2 groups is that you run the risk of one of the subjects in one of the groups having such amazing genetics that it skews the results. One group might seem to be better because of the way they were training, but really it was just because they had a freak of nature driving the average up. We won't have that problem in our study because by using the within-subject unilateral design, each subject serves as their own control. And this is the full training program they'll be running. They'll be doing 4 sets for each exercise with a mixture of a moderate rep range and a slightly higher rep range. And in case you're worried about them not pushing their sets hard enough, each subject was told to take every set to muscular failure. Plus, we had a team of researchers watching them every set.
We are pushing participants hard. Everyone I've spoken to in the study said they were training harder in the study than outside the study. One more, let's go, one more. Again, finish it. Stay upright, just your arm, finish it. Let's go, control, pause, again, pull, no break, go, pull. That's it.
For the people who will say that science-based lifters don't actually train hard, I guarantee you, in this study, they do.
And then, after 8 weeks, we're going to use ultrasound to measure which side builds more muscle, the side doing lengthened partials or the side doing full range of motion. All right, let me show you around the lab.
Whoa. This is the lab where the subjects are going to be training. We've got a Smith machine, power rack, a few benches, a bunch of dumbbells. We've got the leg press over here, seated calf machine, seated leg curl. We've got lat pull down. Got a free motion cable over here, and then just some strength testing equipment and that sort of stuff over there.
At the start of the study, we showed all the subjects how to do lengthened partials. We told them that it's really important that you still control the negative. A lot of people think of partial reps as cheat reps, so they just let their form go loose and do these herky-jerky, bouncy fast reps. But all the same technique instructions for full range of motion reps still apply to partial reps. So you still control the negative, you still do a slight pause in the full stretch, and you still use an explosive positive.
A lot of people, when I say partial reps, they just start sending it. And it's like, no, it's the same exact technique you'd use on full range of motion, just cut the range of motion in half.
Dr. Wolf here is one of the world's leading experts on the topic of range of motion. And based on the accumulating evidence, he's actually been doing lengthened partials exclusively for the last year. That's crazy. He hasn't done a single full range of motion rep in over a year. And I've got to be honest, his physique is looking great, especially his quads. Holy crap. But he's not the only one excited about the prospect of long muscle lengths. Dr. Eric Helms, someone known for being a skeptic and a late adopter, has expressed optimism recently as well.
Why is range of motion better? Well, it's probably because it includes these longer muscle lengths.
We're losing some stretch on the lat. So how do we account for that? I simply angle it. Instead of reaching around my rib cage, I'm actually getting stretch on the lat.
And Dr. Mike Isertel, someone who's literally made full range of motion an entire division of his online brand, has also embraced the idea that the stretch most likely matters the most.
On the net aggregate of muscle hypertrophy, should you still be biasing the majority of your training into lengthened position? Yes.
So, with these leaders from the scientific community behind us, we started our study. And for the next 8 weeks, all 30 subjects just followed the plan. Every person did a full range of motion on one side and lengthened partials on the other side. And after a really intense, carefully monitored 8 weeks of training, the results were in. So it's been 3 months since I was in New York. The results are in, and we finally have an answer to the question of whether or not lengthened partials work well for experienced trainees. I, however, do not know the answer to that question yet, because I told everyone else in the research group to not let me know the results until everything is done and all the statistics have been crunched. I don't know why. I'm a little bit nervous. This experiment was a lot of work. I'm gonna hop on a call with Dr. Pack and Dr. Wolf, and they're gonna share with me everything that we found.
Hey.
Yo.
What's up, boys? Have you guys seen me since I cut my hair?
No, I was about to say.
I got the buzz cut going.
Who's the Polish hooligan?
So I asked Dr. Pack and Dr. Wolf to present the findings to me on a graph. So here on the whiteboard, you can see that on the y-axis is muscle growth, and on the x-axis are the two conditions. So the full ROM side and the lengthened partial side.
Let's do it.
The hype!
You're legit hype.
I actually am. Hey, I care about this stuff.
Full range of motion.
Let's see it.
Charging.
6.6%. Trained lifters, 8 weeks.
Show me the money. Okay, so I mean, is it
5.9?
Is it safe to assume that is basically the same?
No difference.
Now, just to be clear, statistically, this is no difference. If you just look at the graph, you might think maybe full range of motion did a bit better, but it didn't. I mean, this is what the graph looked like for the biceps. Here, it definitely looks like length and partials came out on top, but no, there was no statistically significant difference here either. That's because you need to account for random variation, genetics, measurement error, etc. And so if the difference isn't big enough, you just can't score it as an actual difference. All right, so of all the possible outcomes, I didn't know what to make of this at first. But having sat with the data for a while now, I think you can look at it two ways. You could say that length and partials didn't work any better than full range of motion, so if you love doing a full range of motion, go for it. Or you could say that you can get the same gains as full range of motion by doing half reps, as long as they're in the stretch time.
If you were to come to me 2 years ago and say you had one group that did half reps for their whole training program, and you had another group that did full range of motion, who do you think saw better growth? I would be like, well, obviously full range of motion. But now what we've essentially found is that groups doing half reps on every exercise for the entirety of their program were able to get equivalent gains to the group doing full range of motion.
Oddly enough, this study did convince me that length and partials are worth doing. And I've actually been including them more in my own training since our study. That's because if I can get the same results with half the range, that's pretty sweet. On some exercises, doing a full range of motion feels a lot harder or it's more annoying. So why go through that extra pain of doing the full squeeze if it's most likely not giving you any extra gains? Think about it. According to our study, even when the subjects completely cut out the squeeze on every single exercise, they still made the same gains. So the squeeze just can't matter that much for muscle growth. If it did, we'd have seen significantly more growth with full ROM. But we didn't. That said, I do think this study will temper some of the expectations around the stretch. While I do still think that the stretch is the most important part of the range of motion, at least for most muscles, focusing on it exclusively doesn't seem to supercharge your gains, at least not in experienced subjects.
Do you feel like that with this study, you would walk back your enthusiasm for lengthened training? Or do you feel even more enthusiastic about lengthened training?
I would say a single study should only shift your enthusiasm by so much. And in this case, with the results being null, meaning no difference in hypertrophy between full range of motion, length, and partials, it shifts my prior stance by a slight amount towards the effect being smaller than before. I do still think if I had to bet what causes more growth, for a beginner, for an advanced lifter, what have you, I would still bet on length and partials. Not by a huge margin, but I would still bet on it.
But I think it also depends on the specific exercises because, depending on the exercises you're doing, I think maybe you would see a benefit with lengthened training.
So yes, if you're skipping the stretch, I do think you're missing out on some gains. But there's a lot of wiggle room. If you're an experienced trainee and you prefer training with a full range of motion, that is clearly an effective approach. If you prefer to do half reps, that'll work at least just as well, as long as you do them in the stretch tab. If you consider all the other studies on new lifters, you could easily still make the case that length and partials may be more optimal than a full range of motion for some muscles, especially muscles like the calves and hamstrings, where those other studies testing those muscles found bigger results. I also want to give a quick shout out to my nutrition app, Macro Factor. We gave free access to all the subjects in the study so they could log their nutrition while in the study. The app uses science-based algorithms to update your nutrition each week based on changes to your unique metabolism over time. We've got over 180,000 users, and we've had some absolutely incredible transformations from people using the app. And if you'd like to try it out for yourself for free, you can get a free 2-week trial if you download the app in the App Store and use code Jeff. And I'll put a QR code up here on screen for that, and I'll also link it in the description box down below. Thanks, guys. I'll see you all here in the next one.
Length and partials. All right, that's enough of that.
Science-based lifting is when you base your workouts around what the science says is best for muscle growth. It's a relatively new style of training, the opposite of the more old-school shut up and lift approach. Science-based lifters do optimized exercises, track their weights, and instead of always pushing their muscles as hard as possible, they push themselves in a more controlled way, hard enough to maximize the muscle stimulus, but not so hard that you create too much fatigue. This is basically how I've trained for the last 10 years, but this style of training is clearly under attack.
The big channels now are all about the science-based.
I'm really tired of the whole science-based training movement.
I don't think science-based lifting is good, and I don't think it's a good idea.
I'll be honest, I find these criticisms a little frustrating, but not for the reasons that you might think. You see, when you search science-based workout on YouTube, I'm the first result. If you search optimal training on TikTok, it's me again. So you might think these critiques frustrate me because an attack on science-based lifting is basically an attack on me, but that's not why. The real reason that I find these critiques frustrating is that they're not entirely wrong. I actually agree with some of the critiques about science-based lifting. So in this video, I want to set the record straight. I'm going to show you all the things everyone thinks are science-based that I actually disagree with. And then I'm going to show you the few things that are truly science-based and that I do agree with. And by the end of the video, you'll know exactly which aspects of science-based lifting you need to pay attention to and which aspects you can ignore. All right, let's start with the most popular science-based lifting advice, that slow negatives are better for muscle growth. Anytime I hear anyone talk about science-based lifting, the first thing I hear is that you need to slow down the negative, that part of the lift where you're lowering the weight back down. But do slow negatives actually build more muscle? Well, let's see. This study had people train their biceps with preacher curls for 7 weeks. One group did a normal 1 second negative. The other group did a slow 4 second negative. After 7 weeks, both groups grew the same amount of muscle. This study had people do squats with either a 2 second negative or a slow 4 second negative. Both groups grew the same amount of muscle. And this study had people do leg extensions one leg at a time. One leg used a normal 1 second negative, the other leg used a slow 3 second negative. Both legs grew the same. That's 3 studies showing that a normal 1 to 2 second negative works just as well as a slower 3 to 4 second negative. Now, some of you may object that Mike Israetel preaches slow negatives, and he's an expert.
Control slow, 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 slow.
And yes, Mike is an expert, and I value his opinion. So I wanted to give him a call and ask him why. So Mike, based on the workouts we've had together, I've gathered that you like to use slower negatives. Could you explain your rationale behind that?
Yeah, that's a great question. There are a few layers of rationale. It's a little bit nuanced, and so sometimes I think I get understandably kind of interpreted by other people as like just carte blanche advocating slow negatives. A lot of people will assume that I think there's a direct hypertrophy benefit to them, and I don't think that. But there are some good reasons to use a slower negative. I can tell you, like, okay, slowing down your negative doesn't directly cause any more muscle growth, but it's substantially safer. All of a sudden it's like, okay, so there's no downside really, but there's an upside of safety. Like, okay, that sounds pretty cool. That sounds like an interesting thing to really think about. The other thing is a lot of people have trouble with a mind-muscle connection. They can't feel their pecs working, their biceps working, whatever their muscle the group they're doing. It's a situation. And the mind-muscle connection does
eccentric
not
contractions
produce these
or
crazy
gas.
differences in hypertrophy. But in some individuals, it can produce substantial differences, small but notable ones, and that can help.
Just out of curiosity, like, in your own training,
Actual gas?
how long would you say each negative takes you on average?
2 seconds, maybe?
Really?
1 to
Okay,
2 seconds?
that's,
Yeah,
really?
like,
Okay, that's not
yeah,
that slow, though.
Well, yeah, it's not. It's just enough to control the load and enough for me to feel pretty safe.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so we're actually, there's not as much space between us as I thought on that. I think in our workouts, you probably instructed me to slow down because I am new to a lot of the techniques that you guys use. So I think those are great reasons to use slower negatives. And Mike and I are actually more alike on this than I realized. Even though slowing down the negative can help you lock in your technique better, for sure,
where these
I
fucking
think we both
berserkers
agree
are
that
at.
controlling the negative is the most important thing. It doesn't necessarily need to be super slow. This year, I was an author on a scientific review of optimal lifting technique, and we found that as long as each rep lasts 2 to 8 seconds in total, you're good. So here's what you need to know. If your negatives last less than 1 second, they're too fast. You should slow them down and control the weight better. If your negatives last 1 to 7 seconds or so, you're in the sweet spot. In this zone, I think it's up to your personal preference how slow you go. But if your negatives last 8 seconds or longer, they're probably too slow, and you'd be better off speeding them up a bit. So I'm not quitting on slow negatives altogether, but I am quitting the idea that you need to go really slow to maximize hypertrophy. Another very popular science-based trend involves technique tips and tweaks. The idea here is that you modify exercises in a specific science-based way, and you'll build more muscle. I use some of these little tips and tweaks myself, like setting the seat back on leg extensions, staying in the stretched half on calf raises, and raising the cable height on lateral raises. But it goes well beyond that. You cannot open social media without being flooded with a new spin on a common exercise. So the question is, are these tips and tweaks actually science-based? And how much of a difference do they actually make? Well, I think it depends on the specific tip in question. Some of these tips do work and are based on some direct peer-reviewed evidence. Some of them might work, but are based on more indirect evidence. And some probably don't work at all, or at least aren't based on any science. So to make this as clear as possible, I made this table. I took every cue I could find on social media and put them into one of 3 categories: cues that work and are based on science, cues that might work and are based on indirect science, and cues that probably don't work, or at least don't have any science behind them. I included the scientific reference for cues that have one, and I'll highlight all the cues that I actually do myself in blue, so you can pause and screenshot if you want to read. But the reality is, all of these tips and tweaks, every one of them, even the science-based ones, will have a relatively minor impact on your gains. And none of these tips and tweaks are as important as simply pushing yourself hard and doing enough volume. But that's just the tip of the iceberg, because it's not just tips and tweaks that people associate with science-based lifting. Science-based lifting has become synonymous with perfect technique in general. Let me prove that to you. Which of these 2 techniques looks more science-based to you? I'm doing perfect, strict technique on the left, and Sam is doing loose, cheating technique on the right. Most people would say that my technique is more science-based. But why? As of now, there's never been a study comparing strict technique to loose technique. Future science could show that loose cheat reps actually cause more growth than perfect strict reps. We don't know. And until that study comes out, it'd be misleading to say that perfect strict form is more science-based. Luckily, we won't have to wait very long for that study because I'm helping run it now at Lehman College in New York. Now, of course, when you do any exercise, there are a few basic technique guidelines that you should follow so you can do the exercise safely and effectively. For example, on a squat, you don't want to fall backward or fall forward, so you should try to keep the bar in line with the middle of your foot. You should try to keep a relatively neutral spine, although a little butt wink at the bottom isn't worth freaking out about. And you should get as deep as you comfortably can, because squatting deep does seem to cause more quad growth and glute growth. But the exact angle you point your toes in, the specific stance width you take, and whether you put your thumb on top or bottom will, in all likelihood, have a very small impact on your gains. These things can help you feel more comfortable with the lift, but the reality is, if you're in the gym squatting with a high effort each week, your legs are going to grow. The same goes for the lat pull down. Many science-based lifters think that if they just take the perfect grip width and point their elbows in exactly the right direction, they're gonna unlock a whole new level of gains. Probably not. Grab the bar, lock yourself into the seat, hold the bar down to your chest, control the weight on the way up, and push the set hard. If you do that, your back is going to grow, and technique refinements beyond that are ultimately just guesses. I personally don't have a problem with people making those guesses, especially if they're educated guesses. There's nothing wrong with telling someone to take a closer grip to target their lats from a different angle, or to lean back a bit more to target the mid-back. But if we're being real, pretty much all of training technique is so much more of an art than it is a science, at least for now. But coaching should be a blend of science and experience, so that's okay. But there's an element of perfect technique that isn't okay, and it's this unrealistic expectation that there should never be any change in your technique from your first rep to your last rep. Let's say on rep 1, you get the bar all the way down to your chest. By the time you get to rep 10, you can't quite get the bar all the way down, it's about 1 inch away. That means rep 10 looks a little different from rep 1. So as a science-based lifter, you end the set there. But if you do that, you're leaving quite a few reps in the tank. In my opinion, just because the range of motion was 1 inch less doesn't mean you need to terminate the set. That's why I love Sam Solik's style of lat pull-downs, where he keeps going even after he can't complete a full rep. When you're pushing really hard, some of your reps might look a little ugly. In my book, that's totally fine, but I do think you should still keep your form somewhat consistent from week to week for tracking progress. If your technique gets sloppier and sloppier over time, you'll still make gains, but you're probably not progressing the target muscle as much as you think. Now, out of everything, science-based lifting is most famous for optimal exercises. Optimal exercises claim to be better for muscle growth based on scientific studies. But what are those studies exactly? Well, let's see by comparing 2 very different back exercises: the half-kneeling one-arm cable lat pull-down and the bent-over barbell row. Most people think of the one-arm cable lat pull-down as the more science-based exercise, and the barbell row as the more hardcore exercise. Maybe that's understandable. After all, in my back tier list video, I put the one-arm half-kneeling lat pull-down in S tier and the barbell row in B tier, and that led to reactions like this one.
That's S tier! That's S tier! That is not S tier.
That reaction kind of makes sense, honestly, because the way I ranked these exercises, many people understandably thought that I think you'd build a bigger back with the one-arm cable pull-down than with the barbell row. But I don't think that, and I didn't think that when I made the tier list video. If you were forced to do just one of these exercises for the rest of your life, I would 100% pick the barbell row. That's because it's a compound movement that'll activate all the muscles in your back. By contrast, the one-arm lat pull-down will specifically isolate one muscle in your back, your lats. These are different tools for different jobs. I'd pick the barbell row if I was training someone limited on time and who needed to get the most bang for their buck. I'd especially pick it if they were trying to get stronger. But I'd pick the one-arm lat pull-down for someone who's already hit their basic compound lift and needed a little extra volume for their lagging lats. That one-arm lat pull will add more lat volume for basically no fatigue. It's perfect for that. The reason I put the barbell row in B tier is because I think there's a better tool for the same job. The deficit pendlay row does the same job as the barbell row, plus a bigger stretch and a more standardized range of motion. And a chest-supported machine row does the same job as the barbell row, but with more stability and less fatigue. In retrospect, I just wasn't clear enough on what the tiers meant. So a lot of people thought that the S tier exercises were the most science-based exercises, A tier exercises were a little less science-based, and B tier and below were basically just bro science. That's not true though. There's honestly just not much science on exercise selection at all. It may shock you to learn that there's never been a single study that has measured back muscle hypertrophy directly. Not one. There's just biomechanics research and EMG studies. And we don't even know if EMG predicts hypertrophy. So my tier list rankings mainly came from indirect evidence and personal experience. And now, having done the series, I think it'd be more accurate to think of the tier list as going from slightly more effective to slightly less effective. But you need to realize that as long as you take any exercise to failure, or close to failure, that exercise will build muscle. From there, you can fine-tune things based on stretch, tension, overload, and what feels good. But I do think the exact exercises you pick are less important than simply training hard and doing enough volume. Training hard and doing enough volume is what hypertrophy science is really all about. I mean, just look at all the hypertrophy studies on training volume alone, and compare that to all the hypertrophy studies on the optimal bench angle for pec growth. So I'm gonna go a little deeper on these two topics, training hard and doing enough volume. When it comes to training hard, this is what the science shows. The latest meta-analysis took 15 studies, pulled them together, and compared the muscle growth from groups going to failure versus groups not going to failure. And this graph shows their overall findings. As you can see, as you get closer and closer to failure, you do get more muscle growth. But there's a point where too much failure training can cause recovery issues. I think as long as you're getting 1 to 3 reps shy of failure, you're good. But the problem is, if you always leave 3 reps in the tank, you might accidentally be leaving 5 or 6 reps in the tank without realizing it. That underexertion will cost you gains. So I like to play it a little safe and get a little closer to failure than I probably need to. I usually leave 1 or 2 reps in the tank on most sets and then push my last set all the way to failure, assuming it's an exercise I can fail safely on. How hard you push is your training quality. How many sets you do is your training quantity. You need both quality and quantity for maximum gains. So for maximum gains, how many sets should you do? Well, in the research, this is called training volume, and it's the number of hard sets you do per muscle per week. For example, if you do 5 sets for your chest per week, you do low volume training. If you do 10 sets for your chest per week, you do moderate volume training. And if you do 20 plus sets for your chest per week, you do high volume training. I'd call 30 plus sets per muscle per week ultra high volume training. Luckily, we now understand the relationship between volume and muscle growth so much better than ever before. A brand new training volume meta-analysis was just published a few weeks ago with a ton of super impressive data analysis. Across 35 studies, they found that doing more volume did in fact cause more muscle growth. And that was true all the way up to 42 sets per muscle per week. That's an insanely high, borderline impractically high level of volume, and the gains are diminishing. But it's nonetheless true that the more work you do, the better gains you get, at least in the short term. And that's the crucial caveat with this research. It's still unclear how these different volumes play out over the long term. That's because most of these studies only last 6 to 10 weeks. So for 6 to 10 weeks or so, yeah, doing high volume causes more gains. But we don't know for sure if that's true over time. For that reason, I think the volume sweet spot is still in this range for most people, 8 to 20 sets per muscle per week. If you really want to bring up a lagging body part, like your chest for example, you could blast it with super high volume for a month or two, going as high as 30 sets per week. And as long as you reduce your volume for other body parts, you should recover fine and make some sweet pec gains. But remember, if you don't have all day to train, the research still shows that even just 4 sets per muscle per week can get the job done as long as you push those sets hard. And if you take one message away from this video, I hope it's that your training doesn't need to be perfect to be effective. I know some people in my audience get paralysis by analysis. They want to figure out every little thing about training before getting to work. I think it's cool to try to figure out every little thing. I do that myself. But the reality is, the best program isn't always the most optimal one. It's the one you'll actually stick to. So it's totally fine if you drop your strict RPE adherence and do some field-based sets every now and then. It's also totally fine if you do some workouts that are suboptimal on paper, but just more fun in the gym. It's cool if you do some cheat reps at the end of some sets because it helps you get in the zone. None of these things are in conflict with smart training because smart training is mostly about training hard and being consistent. I start my new book, The Muscle Ladder, with a chapter on sustainability, and then there's a big chapter on mindset. These two principles form the rails of the ladder, and then all the other variables like technique, exercise selection, effort, and volume make up the 10 rungs of the ladder. It's a huge hardcover book with super high quality print, full color images, and diagrams, plus 20 training programs. So I'll link it in the description box down below. I also want to quickly mention that my nutrition app, Macro Factor, is doing a massive $100,000 transformation contest starting January 1st. To enter, all you need to do is download Macro Factor and enter the contest through the link below. The person with the best transformation will win $50,000, and then 100 other people will also win a $500 cash prize. It's a huge opportunity to not only transform your physique in the new year, but also have a pretty good shot at winning some cash. So I'll link that in the description box as well. All right, that's it for this one, guys. Don't forget to leave me a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you all here in the next one.
Do you believe that Black Lives Matter?
Yes.
Uh-oh. Go on with your bad self. Okay.
Talking about the organization, or are you talking about you?
Are you tired of being called the female Ben Shapiro?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Would you ever be a stay-at-home mom?
Yes.
How many kids do you want?
3 or 4.
Good number.
What? What do I want?
Do you think Trump should call it quits?
Yes.
All right, Mr.
I guess
Trump.
from 2024, let's go.
Do you believe that Black Lives Matter?
That's crazy.
Or you're using...
I think I just drank a gnat. It was in my water.
Well, your protein intake's been down anyway recently.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Probably increased my calories by a half a calorie.
Last workout, you got 8 repetitions with that particular weight. Perhaps today you get 10. Once that gnat hits your bloodstream.
Oh yeah, well that's what I was sort of waiting for it to do.
A man's man if I ever saw one. Anybody who can eat gnats during a workout's got to be...
And not even bad enough.
Not even bad enough. Or you're using...
I think I just drank a gnat. It was in my water.
Well, your protein intake's been down anyway recently.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Probably increased my calories by a half a calorie.
Last workout, you got 8 repetitions with that particular...
Pray or be prey. Freedom, faith, family.
After this woke reporter repeatedly called Donald Trump a racist, his wife stepped in and explained herself in the best way possible.
You're an immigrant.
Yes.
Do you ever think he's gone too far?
I follow the law. I follow a law the way it's supposed to be. I never thought to stay here without papers. I had visa. I travel every few months back to the country, to Slovenia, stamped the visa. I came back. I applied for the green card. I applied for the citizenship later on after many years of green card. So I went by system, I went by the law. And you should do that. You should not just say, okay, let me just stay here.
For you parents that want to be good fathers and parents, have those kids around these individuals that are doing rare things. The people that walk through my house are the rarest of rare. And I got him around them. And as a father, I love that. Because he's going to grow up with the mindset of 350-pound guys are not big. It's like, what? That's a big man. To him, he'll be like, no, I'm going to be 400, or I'm going to be. And so the mindset for the kids as you grow, because you want.
And if you can't do any positive or full range dips, then place a chair or bench between the dip bars, stand up into the straight arm locked elbow position, and lower yourself in negative fashion, taking several seconds to reach the bottom. Then stand up on the chair into the straight arm position and do it again. When you can perform up to 10 negative dips, with each rep taking several seconds to complete, you should be able to do regular full range dips. And if you can't do any positive or full range dips, then place a chair or bench between the dip bars, stand up into the straight arm locked elbow position, and lower yourself in negative fashion, taking several seconds to reach the bottom. Then stand up on the chair into the straight arm position and do it again. When you can perform up to 10 negative dips, with each rep taking several seconds to complete, you should be able to do regular full range dips. And if you can't do any positive or full range dips, then place a chair or bench between the dip bars, stand up into the straight arm locked elbow position, and lower yourself in negative fashion, taking several seconds to reach the bottom. Then stand up on the chair into the straight arm position and do it again. When you can perform up to 10 negative dips, with each rep taking several seconds to complete, you should be able to do regular full range dips. And if you can't do any positive or full range dips, then place a chair or bench between the dip bars, stand up into the straight arm locked elbow position, and lower yourself in negative fashion, taking several seconds to reach the bottom. Then stand up on the chair into the straight arm position and do it again. When you can perform up to 10 negative dips, with each rep taking
Hey guys, welcome back to Artosis Cast. The next
Divine Shield. Freedom. Freedom. Protection. Freedom. Freedom. Fear Ward. Freedom.
Much trouble.
If this is rough and you don't get that plus.
Wait, do I have money?
Oh my god, I have money.
When do we get paid? Probably this Friday? I don't know. Let's check the bank account. February 21st? Oh, that was last week. So how to set up a 2-week payday reminder on my Apple Calendar. Tap the plus button, select reminder. Nice. $3,500. $3,700. That pitch has
Next few days should be really fun. Definitely have some really interesting matchups coming up. And first off here, we do have Barcode versus Barcode. You know, a few people have been asking about possibly putting an overlay over this to get the actual IDs down. I think that's something I'm going to try very soon here. I would say probably in the next week or two. But yeah, I'm kind of like thinking about how to do that and make it not look like total ass. But anyways, you know, everyone plays on a barcode. What can we do? Here in the bottom right, this is true. He has been dominating. He is already qualified for the SSL. Very excited about his play. We've seen a lot of his Zerg versus Terran and a little bit of his Zerg versus Protoss. Today we're going to be watching his Zerg versus Protoss, and it's against one of my very favorite Protoss players in Ruin. Haven't seen as many Ruin games recently. I've definitely casted a ton of Ruin games over the last couple of years. And I'm a big fan of the way that he plays. He's extremely modern. I think he's a really strong player. He's been in ASL a few times. And yeah, I'm really hoping that he can continue to improve. And we'll see how he's going to look here on Radeon against True. All right, so it is a pull first. He does get that scout off, and you can see he was kind of prepping like, oh, maybe this can be a Nexus first. I believe the timing of this will be Forge into Nexus, but I'm like 90% sure on that. But we'll see there in just a second. By the way, guys, while we kind of watch this all get ready, because this is, you know, this is a very normal early game. We'll probably see like 2 Zerglings made out of this total, but he'll still have to make a cannon, that type of thing. I do want to thank you guys for tuning into Artosis Cast. Hope that you've been enjoying the games. And yeah, well, I guess that's it. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Please do make sure that you like, subscribe, leave a comment. Unless your comment is that the thumbnails spoil the winner of the match, because they literally don't. And every time someone says that, it's literally not the case. And I'm like, well, you haven't watched the video, because that's not the case, because I do it backwards half the time. So yeah, you there, don't comment. Okay. Now, you see, he actually did end up making 4 Zerglings, which I find slightly surprising, because I feel like when you go pull first like this, generally you'll make 2. But maybe with that probe scout timing, he was like, oh, there could be a Zealot on the way. But I don't know. It doesn't feel like the before you can block the probe from coming back up the ramp, that type of thing. Anyways, Ruin over here, going for a gateway. Yeah, just all very standard stuff. Third hatchery for True over here. And getting his gas going there as well. We'll see if he does go for anything like a 3-hatch Hydralisk play. Definitely have seen a lot of that. Still very, very popular. You know, I'm kind of sitting here thinking about some of the PVZs that I've seen recently. And, you know, obviously we had those Rain ones, which I thought were pretty cool, where he was, you know, really focusing on going for lurkers. We've definitely seen some players, like that action game was a really, really fun one where he was trying to get the fast carapace upgrade. That was one of my favorite ZVPs from the Zerg perspective that I've seen in quite some time. Very much like the ideas behind that, but it still feels like a 3-hatch Hydra into just strong macro is extremely, extremely good in the matchup, although we don't see True doing that in this particular game. Yeah, I actually kind of like where Protoss versus Zerg is at the moment. Like, I don't know, I feel like we're getting, like, there's some interesting things happening on both sides. There's some rotation of strategies. There's some interesting aspects as to, like, the upgrades and the speed of each upgrade. Some people are trying to mix it up and maybe go less Hydra and more Ling at certain points. I don't know. You guys can let me know if you would agree with that assessment, but it does feel like a pretty... The matchup feels fresh right now, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It doesn't feel like we're watching the same games over and over, whereas if you look at about, what was it, maybe 6 months ago, if you looked at Terran vs. Protoss, every game was a 5 or 6 factory build, right? And obviously it's come out of that now and we're getting like really interesting TVPs, but sometimes you get stuck in a meta where it's like, okay, every game looks very close to the same while they figure things out. Yeah, that definitely doesn't feel like what we're seeing in PvZ currently. Maybe I'm just lucky with the games that I've been choosing to cast and everything, but the ones that I've watched in other tournaments like KCM have felt pretty good too. Anyways, the Zealot here that he has sent over some pressure sitting in between those mineral patches. Another one going into the natural here is going to be able to hunt down this drone. And, well... He's getting a lot of damage, but very good control from True overall. He's just not really losing anything. Moves the Zealot back into a perfect location here, so he'll get as many kills as he really can. Also causing a lot of lost mining time is nice. That was good micro from True, pulling back the one-hit Zergling, so he doesn't end up losing that. +1 attack on the way. Citadel. Yeah, Photon Cannon. Oh, double Stargate. Okay. Now we're getting somewhere. Now, that is a second gas started. No third gas started. Well, third gas normally you won't see started here anyways. But I do not see a carapace upgrade. So this might not be that good. You know, when they're going Spire, I feel like it's a coin flip. Whether they're going to make the 5 mutas or possibly more. And whether they're going to... Or they're just going to go for Force Scourge. Because, like, Force Scourge is very, very common. That was completely the metagame for a while, where you just go Force Scourge, push the... Corsairs back and go into your Hydralisks. More recently, like the 5 mutas, we have been seeing a lot, and not as many heavy Mutalisk games. Now, this is the Force Scourge variant here, which is just like a very standard normal macro build, which this build is not as good against. You're really looking for them to make Mutalisks if you're going to invest in 2 Stargate Corsair. Now, some players can still play that well. Oh, there's the 5 mutas. Okay, so he is making the 5 mutas. One thing to note, no +1 flyer carapace. So regardless, the Corsairs are going to dominate. But yeah, one thing to mention is if they do skip Muta completely, there is a pre-Storm Hydralisk bust timing that kills 2 Stargate Corsair with like alarming consistency. The build is a bit risky, but here it is going to pay off for him. This is not a quick Hydralisk den that came up, although he did already have that +1 going, so he definitely isn't planning on going heavy mutas. But as the mutas come out and 7 Corsairs fly over... Oh, geez. Okay, well, he gets 2 of them immediately, but he has no way to prevent, like, mass Overlord death at this point. This looks rough right now for True. Like, I'm looking at this position, I feel like, okay, just about any good Protoss should be able to take this type of game into like a very advantaged position. Maybe you don't win right away, but he's going to get a lot of overlords. Look at this. The Corsairs killing off the overlords. More Corsairs actually are on the way, but really he should be getting into Psystorm ASAP. He is getting a Dark Templar, which makes sense. Some Corsairs having to fly back as the mutas are drawing them back here a little bit. And look at this. Just the supply block is like just about infinite at this point. Look at this. The Corsairs chasing down these mutalisks as well. Great moving shots there. Just kind of attack moving around with these 5, trying to get as many kills as he can. I love the splitting of these mutas by True. He's doing a great job of kind of sending those back and trying to be a little bit annoying, drawing the Corsairs around so he can actually make the overlords he needs to get his Hydralisk count up. Hydralisk range on the way. That +1 attack almost done here. Now the Corsairs flying over everything.
I need to see something on Warcraft logs. Vanilla. Class balance. Okay, in the next. Interesting. Paladin is so bad. It's so crazy. I wish we had one for Underborn.
What was that? Am I the only one who doesn't get it?
Hey, get a grip. You got this.
This is weird.
Yeah, college is weird and stressful and exciting and...
I meant you.
Ooh.
Guys, no, wait a minute. There are easier ways to get information about a place. Simply head over to apartments.com for tools like 3D virtual tours to learn everything you need to know. Hey, okay, be brave. Be brave. I've done all I can. Apartments.com, the place to find a place. Nope.
Bro, I need to be an herbalist. No, that don't even make sense. I mean, whatever.
Be quick about your business. Victory for Sylvanus.
It's warrior, rogue, mage. And then it's kind of a tie between enhancement, marksmanship hunter, warlock, and feral druid.
What do you require? Watch your back.
Like, this is what, 8 Corsairs right now with a Dark Templar out here. Dude, he's gonna deal so much damage. True is in so much trouble this game. Oh my god, look at that. You know, this is rough. If you don't get that +1 flyer care pace, you can't even really counter the yeah, look at that, the DT lives. You can't even really counter the Corsairs with the Scourge. Like, they'll just get gunned down so quickly without that +1 armor. So this is a huge problem. The Dark Templar is dealing tons of damage. The supply block has been basically forever. Look at this. Ruin starts 6 cannons back here. True does try to attack before they're up, but they are up just in the nick of time here. Corsairs sweeping through. The cannons will be able to hold all these Hydras. That's not going to be an issue. Even has a Psy Storm ready. You know, if the supply block hadn't been so gigantic, he could have had a lot more Hydras here and possibly busted him. But the Corsairs have done such an excellent job at keeping him supply block. And look, like, 2 Hydras are not going to stop this many Corsairs. In comes the Dark Templar once again. These Hydras picking off what they can over here. They did get the Forge, so that's kind of nice. And this DT just going to town. Ooh, a little bit messy there for a moment. He did make a Spore. So he does have a single Spore here. Honestly, wouldn't mind a Spore over here if he could get one up somehow. Definitely not uncommon to see DTs in these situations chop down eggs sometimes as well. Looks like there is an Overlord that's going to be coming out. And Ruin feels that. He's going to run out with that Dark Templar. So the Overlord pops out. Lot of Scourge
Could
here.
just
And he's going to
solo
run
it, I
away these
guess.
6 Corsairs. I think that's very smart. Just kind of keep those alive, and there can't really be a Mutalist tech switch. And look at this. He's already got 5 High Templar now. He's got a very healthy gateway count at that 6. I mean, that 8, sorry. We have a range on the way for the Dragoons. We have that +2 armor, rather, coming up. So everything looking very, very nice. Now, the Corsairs, I don't know how much more damage they're going to get. And in fact, I kind of feel like the harassment period of them might be mostly over. Because I'm looking at this and it's like, okay, you do have a little bit of extra bank here. Really, just making a good army should be the primary move. Obviously, we see 8 Dragoons in production, so you're not going to be able to macro really cleaner than that. But what we want to see here from Ruin, if he is to take this game, is to get that money down, get that army gigantic, and move out on the map. He's definitely giving himself an advantage. He's getting up into Observers now as well. Adds another gateway there because he loses this front one, so going up to those 8 gates once again. A few pylons going down to keep that supply uncapped. And the Lurker upgrade coming up, as well as +2 ranged attack here for True. Single Zealot running in and kind of seeing what's what. He did see the drone leaving, so he should have a good idea that a 4th base is probably going to be on the way up here pretty soon, which definitely is something that True needs to do as well. Also, you do need to kill this cannon. Hopefully he'll recognize that in a second. Yeah, this is the thing. I don't want to see, like, he's still moving around a lot, and like this can be annoying, but it's not like, look, at this point in the game, he's killing 1 Overlord with it, okay? Which is, okay, yeah. I mean, killing an Overlord is great, but right now what we actually need to do is kill this, take a position, decide, are we expanding, are we attacking? And these are things that, you know, any player can do where it's like, well, I get so much value doing this, and then you over-control it. You know, you spend more time on an action than it really needs. You know, different actions have different powers throughout the game. It's actually, there was a really cool clip by Jinjin, the amazing translator for the non-Korean scene, or the foreign scene, I should say, as he is technically Korean. But there is this awesome clip where Rain was talking about TY and how TY was playing too many dropships too late in the game. It's like the dropship phase is over. You need to be focusing on these other moves that are really, really important at these other phases of the game where killing a few probes doesn't matter anymore, right? Killing one overlord doesn't matter anymore. What does matter is keeping your money down, keeping a large army size right now, getting your expansion up on time, moving this army around well. What doesn't matter is these 4 Corsairs killing 3 more overlords over the course of the game. Obviously, in a perfect world with infinite APM and attention, you can get those overlords, but yeah, that's, I mean, and here's the thing. Me as a player, I struggle with this type of thing as well, where I'll overdo something. I'm like, well, this is always good, and it's like, no, man, you gotta focus on these other things. Stop moving the Corsairs around. You can keep them with your army, that's fine, but right now he needs to take these battles well, and you can see he is starting to do that, throwing down some very good side storms. Corsairs do fly up and get microed back. So you see, there are a lot of extra clicks going into that. Couple more gates on the way. Lots of Zealots and High Templars continuing to come out. Wow, he never killed this cannon, so all the Dragoons actually walked around. He really should kill that cannon, though. Make it a little bit cleaner. Lots of Hydras in the way. 4th base here for True.
I need more mana.
Oh my god. 4th base for Ruin as well. I actually did not expect to see this. That is a very quick 4th. You know what? I just got light chills, and it's not because Ruin's playing well. I know Ruin plays well, but you know who this reminds me of? I want you to take a second and just think, what Protoss versus Zerg play does this remind you of, the way that he's played this game so far? I would say it's a little bit Bisu-esque. A little bit Bisu-esque. The Corsair control has been very good. He's been very precise with the DT harassment and everything as well. But also, Bisu loves to play like this, where he'll just take 2 bases, like, instantly. He'll say, yeah, most Protoss take a 3rd base here, I take a 3rd and a 4th. I feel like that's something that I see more from Bisu than anyone else that I can think of off of the top of my head. Kind of cool. And you would imagine that that would be a player that Ruin would be trying to emulate, as Bisu is probably the most important Protoss player in the history of the world. Corsair is still flying around getting some scouting done. He does see the Queen's Nest on the way, but with the Queen's Nest on the way, obviously Hive is a ways off. The single Mutalisk flying through, very similar to the Corsair, just getting a scout, so he's going to see that this base is being taken. But he's got this kind of zoning army. Not that this army is super great, but he's staying, it's like, oh, well, I could attack you here. And over here, you see, like, okay, a very good defensive position. Some Hydras up here, but he's got this where it's like, okay, you can't attack into here, which could hit either base. And if you start to go around, these will give him a warning, and these will give him a warning, and these can be pulled back either over this bridge or over this bridge to help reinforce wherever the army is attacking. So this is a little bit of a stalemate here. Little bit of trench warfare going on where neither side really wants to attack into each other anytime soon. Now, we're going to see exactly that occur. See, he's walking up here with the army and pushing into this, so you have to be ready to move here, and he actually moves back down instantly. You know, I think that this was a very, very smart move by Ruin, the way he went up, because what I said is true. Like, if you're going to attack up here, he's going to have to move units up through here. So if he had unburrowed and run back already, then this immediate southward move once again to hit into this area, which might have been missing a lot of units, could have been very strong, but True did not take the bait. New hatchery on the way. Some Hydras up there defending as well. Dude, he can actually rotate around and get some damage on this base, I think. He does start to attack into the most fortified position. So not a huge, huge fan of that unless he's pretty darn sure he's going to break it. I don't think he's actually going to break this, though. We'll see. That is a lot of Dragoons. He does have a good amount of Size Storm. A lot of these Hydras actually not being utilized right now. There's so many Hydras. You really need to bring these Hydras and Lurkers up here. What are you doing? Just sits back. Only a couple Lurkers left over. Dude, he has so many units. Look at the amount of lings he's making, too. 30 plus lings on the way. He is getting those melee upgrades also. Adrenal just got started. Some good Size Storms going down. Wow, I'm surprised he's just not adding anything into here. True has so many units. Is he waiting for an overextension and to come around the other side? I don't quite understand this. I feel like pulling back or reinforcing would have both been better than just kind of standing and fighting. But he brings the army up now. Some Psystorms go down. Ruin right now trying to stop this huge swarm of Zerg units, but there's actually a lot missing still. Okay, I'm going to be honest. I feel like True got a phone call or something, and he's playing with one hand right now. I don't quite understand, because he lost like 25% of his army, then he brought up 25% of his army and lost to here, and now he's attack moving the rest of his army. Well, not the rest, but a lot of it. And it looks like he'll still clear it. But, like, I just feel like there was a lot of opportunities for this to go way, way better for him. Now, all that being said, he is kind of crushing. An Adrenal upgrade just finished for the Lynx. So they're going to start crushing just about everything here. But there's +3 armor on these Protoss units. So they're actually going to be super tanky against the currently +0 Zerglings, even with that Adrenal upgrade. The Dragoons end up holding everything off. Some Hydras in the center. A 6th base is being taken. So it's going to be 6 base for 6 base here. But the supplies are getting closer, which is generally very, very Zerg favored in this matchup. There are very good upgrades on both sides. As +1 melee finishes, that is definitely going to make a huge difference, as well as the +2 armor, so that the Zealots are not going to fare as well against those Zerglings. Of course, there is another +2 attack on the way here for Ruin. All right, comes up. It looks like he wants to attack towards that top right additional 5th base. So if he can break into there, obviously that is going to be huge. A big row of lurkers morphing at the moment. He does double storm to kill some of the eggs off, and you can see they do just kind of evaporate there. And these few lurkers that do finish up get destroyed very, very quickly. Some units just kind of sitting at their rally over here. Single lurker, okay. A lot of overlords out here. True has lost a lot of supply, and Ruin has quite a few bases at this point. Definitely does seem like it's going to be a Ruin victory. Although I will point back, like, overall I think it was quite a nice game, but those couple sequences in here and then the attack here, I am a little bit confused. It did feel like that wasn't True's best. Not entirely sure why those engagements looked like that. It does feel, it feels like one of those things where, like, I'll be playing and my kid will come in and talk to me and my gameplay will just suffer for 30 seconds or something. It's felt like something like that. But it looks like Ruin is really trying to break through True now. He is up a good 60 or 70 supply. Archon's coming over now as well. +1 plasma shield's done. Pretty big. Plague on the way. A lot of Lings are still coming out, but he just doesn't have quite enough to break through here. More Hydras and Lings coming down. He does have a lot hatching. But yeah, it feels like he just barely doesn't have the critical mass he needs to push this back at this point. Archon's getting pretty low. Oh man, losing these upgrades, losing some of this production as well when you're trying to go into a more Zergling heavy composition. Definitely not going to be good. Starting to kill off some of the drones here at the 3rd. And True is going to GG. I'm not taking this game super seriously because of some of the late mid game or early late game that we saw there as far as defense goes from True. I don't know. Let me know what you think. It definitely, I can't. The thing is, you don't want to, like, just take anything that goes wrong and say that it was a dumb mistake. Sometimes there is something there that the player was trying to do, but also you don't want to take anything a pro does and say, well, it must be good because he's a good player, because that's just simply not the case, and I think most people recognize that. But there was something going on with True where he had so many units and he just kind of let this army go. Like, if he had flanked against it, that wouldn't have happened. If he had come up this way, it wouldn't have happened. If he had even brought the Hydras that are up here down, it's going to help. So yeah, a little bit off there. But anyways, I think it was a good game overall. Thank you for watching, guys. See you next time. Hey guys, welcome back to Artosis Cast. Today we're going to be looking at a Protoss versus Zerg. Up here in the top left of Kickback, we have Paralyze. You've seen a lot of his games lately. He's in excellent shape. This guy was a pro gamer already in StarCraft 1 and StarCraft 2. Definitely one of the Protosses that I'm looking at to possibly get it into SSL this season. His opponent in the bottom right. This is, in my opinion, the most talented Protoss player we've ever had. It's Rain. And he's playing Zerg. Not very expected, but Rain is, I've tried to mention this before, like, I really feel he would be like a Bonjour-esque player if he'd actually just play the game. He was, when he played StarCraft 2, the strongest Protoss player ever. And then he came back to StarCraft 1, and he was the strongest Protoss. But he's too popular as a streamer, so he does like a lot of non-StarCraft stuff. He plays like a lot of League of Legends and other games on his stream and does like live streaming and stuff like that. Also happens to be like best friends with Flash. My guess about that is that like honestly, okay, when I watch him play Protoss, it gives me those Flash vibes where I'm like, oh, he's just smarter than everyone else. It's very obvious. He knows exactly what he wants to do. He understands how the game works on a different level. I truly get that vibe about him. So I kind of look at that and I'm like, oh, and you happen to be really good friends with Flash. Well, that kind of makes sense, right? Like the smartest players kind of being very close friends with each other. Anyways, you know, no way to super prove it or anything. I mean, he gets super deep anytime he's actually playing StarCraft. But the guy just isn't active that often. So we're going to see what his Zerg looks like here. I bet you it's going to look really strong. If you guys remember back, a lot of people were saying, damn, Paralyze's PVZ looks really good. We've done quite a few Paralyze Protoss vs. Zergs lately. His defense has really been on point. He's been one of the strongest Protoss players that we've really been watching on this channel, that's for sure. So yeah, let's see how this goes. I've never seen Rain's Zerg. So excited to see it and what it's going to look like. It is just like a regular hatchery first here into the spawning pool, the probe being a little bit annoying, and Rain will get his third hatchery down pretty quickly. As far as Paralyze goes, you know, he is doing the gateway expansion into the Nexus. Let's not forget, though, you can get that third gas pretty darn quickly, so I feel like that mid-game could be pretty good for Protoss on this map. You know, that's a big part of Protoss for Zerg is like the speed with which Protoss can secure that third gas. Because once you have 3 gas out, the amount of high templars you can field is getting pretty crazy at that point. So right now, just some heavy micro. Rain trying to pick off the probe, but very good micro. Great control here from Paralyze. And it looks like Rain will be able to force that probe to run away. And of course, he is going to be able to kill the Zealot as well. It's not going to make it too much longer here. Maybe he can slip in. Nah, I thought he might try to slip into one of these holes or something, but that's about it. Honestly, I don't even know if the Zealot fits in those holes. I know that a worker does. I think it does. Yeah, it's the same size as an SCV. Okay, anyways. Does lose the Zealot. You know, a little bit of pressure there. He did force Rain into making a few lings. You know, one of the things that I do definitely need to say is Rain being a Protoss main and being really, really good at Protoss vs. Zerg. I would put Protoss vs. Zerg as his second best matchup. I think he's the best Protoss vs. Protoss player ever, and I think he's his Protoss vs. Zerg is very, very, very good. But you know he understands the other side of the matchup. He knows what's hard for Protoss players to deal with. So whatever it is that he does here, like I've noticed this too. When you play Terran versus Protoss versus a Terran player that's playing Protoss, you can feel it because they just know every little abuse that's annoying to deal with, right? Like you guys know Nyokin. Nyokin, like literally, he didn't tell anyone he was doing this, but he played like every top 4 in Terran with Protoss, And he just went DT into mass expanding cannons and carriers. And that's like literally the only thing he did. And he beat like every top non-Korean Terran player with it, including myself. It was just like, man, so I'm, obviously that's kind of like a cheesy example of it. But with Rain playing here, I'm like, okay, he'll do something and we'll look at it and be like, yeah, no, that's pretty smart. That's obviously very hard to deal with as a Protoss player. Now, looking back at Paralyze's base, I like the setup so far. He's got the +1 going. He is going to try to come out with a few of these Zealots and make sure that Rain is making enough Zerglings. The Corsair is going to be coming out pretty quickly. This probe is still somehow alive, which is kind of insane. Zergling speed's done, so it's not going to last much longer at this point. Citadel gets started by Paralyze, so he is going to be going up towards those Zealot legs, continually try to put a little bit more pressure on. Now, like, obviously Zealot legs and +1 are very important upgrades, but I do want to point out that specifically on kickback, you only have this 1 point of defense, so speed Zealots are not going to actually get much done. That's one of the funny things about maps like this. And for instance, this is one of the reasons why, like, Terran vs. Zerg is, like, you can't play SK Terran on this map, for instance. I've gone over that plenty of times. I'm not going to do it now again. But you can't go SK Terran here because there's one choke to defend 3 bases that have gas. So the same type of thing exists here where it's like, okay, I mean, your Zealots can be as fast as you want them to be, but it's not like you're seesawing back and forth between 2 bases that he has to split defense at. There's 1 defense point. So this is just not going to be very strong. It's just, yeah. I don't know. Like, the thing is, well, what should you do then? Well, it's not that it's bad to get the +1 in the legs, but probably what you want to do here is not go for a Dark Templar. You probably want to get your Psystorm and your Dragoon range and go into a more of a mid-game composition is my bet. Like, I'm not a PvZ player, but just the basic fundamentals of the game kind of point towards something like that. Now, a lot of Speedlings coming up. He does retreat the Zealots back to the wall. A few Corsairs are out. Of course, that +1 on the way. You can see that Rain is not wasting any time with Mutalisks. Ooh, 1 does hit. 1 Scourge hits. Instead, he's gotten his hatcheries up very quickly. He's going into that Hydralisk speed. Has that Evolution Chamber up. Not upgrading quite yet. There you go. Just starts it. Getting his Overlord speed here as well, and just mass Hydralisk production. So it's going to be really, really heavy Hydra here. And of course, these Zealots are, not going to get anything done. Now, he has started another base, so this is where the Speed Zealots actually have some potential. And just to mention, like, there's different styles of playing Zerg. You don't always take a 4th base this quickly. You can. It is one of the ways you can play ZVP, but I've seen plenty of pro Zerg versus Protoss games where the Zerg will stay on 3 bases a little bit longer until they kind of have like a very solid army and then take that. But this could have been a situation where if he happened to know that was there, maybe his Zealots run in and cancel that, and suddenly my whole diatribe on Zealot legs not being helpful is a little bit, less accurate there. DT is out, but again, you're not getting through there. Maybe he can find this and go in there. It's definitely a possibility. I think his Corsairs actually did scout it, so DT kind of heading that way, and this is going to be bad for him, I think, because with that many Corsairs there, it's going to be hard to clear. Now, Rain coming up for an attack. There's not many cannons as of yet. He's just shoving it right up to the wall, trying to hit a pre-storm bust timing, which obviously is really strong. There is no Psystorm at the moment. And the DT is wrecking that hatchery, but the Hydras are doing a really good job. A lot of probes are being sacrificed right now. Damn, man.